Yeah. Yeah, oh yeah. Wow, so there's everyone here. Every time we have a quiz, it's like. Yeah, we have-
I said that, right?
yeah, we have
It's an amazing thing. All right. You guys are here, so here are the 4 types of elasticities. And this isn't clicking, so maybe. There we go. All right, so there's elasticity of demand, so the elasticity of demand and supply are the same thing, formula wise and coefficient wise. This one's on supply and one's on demand. And I'm gonna go over each one of these in detail. Just remember, these are absolute numbers for the elasticity of supply and demand. Cross price, substitutes and complements, income, normal or inferior goods.
Yeah.
And whenever they ask a question about cross price, they're gonna have A, normal goods, B, inferior. All it could do is substitutes, complements, normal or inferior goods. Okay. Let's get the first one. All right, general characteristics of inelastic goods, few substitutes, necessities, small portion of income. And I think one of the ones to really remember is inelastic goods in short run over long run. So you're more inelastic in the short run. And then the coefficient, percentage change in quantity over percentage change in price. And just remember, quantity is on the top of all of them. I wouldn't knock myself out knowing all the characteristics. I think time is one that they ask a lot and substitutes. Okay. All right. Elastic goods, many substitutes. And by the way, if you know one of them, you should know like the other is opposite. Set of necessities, it's luxuries, large portion of income, instead of small, and then plenty of time. So the one they ask a lot is time. All right. So you're more inelastic in the short run, more elastic and then again, it's okay. So for inelastic, the coefficient is less than 1. For elastic, it is more than 1. And for unit elastic, it is 1. And again, remember, these are absolute numbers. Do I have supply elasticity on there? No. Okay, so I'm not going to go over supply elasticity because all the coefficients are the same. Everything's the same, except it's percentage quantity of supply instead of percentage change of quantity of demand. Okay. All right. Here, I would say there's definitely one question on the test on the total revenue. Okay. Now, total revenue and expenditures equal each other. So expenditures is how much buyers are spending. So for every dollar I spend, someone makes $1. And I only say this because sometimes they'll ask for expenditures, like to do the total revenue test. Remember, total revenue is price times quantity. Okay. For the elastic, it's an inverse relationship. Price increases cause total revenue to decrease. And then price decrease causes total revenue to increase. And then again, I would like to put a star next to this to kind of denote there's definitely a question on it. Inelastic, Price increases causes total revenue to increase. So they are a direct relationship. And then unit elastic. Price increases, no change in total revenue. God bless you. Okay.
Perfectly like
Say that again.
What about perfectly inelastic?
As far as this, it's gonna be like the same, like as elastic. Do you know, as far as the ratios,
Okay.
okay? All right, so cross price, all right, shows how sensitive a product is to the change of another. So here we're talking about substitutes and complements. That's the only thing cross price elasticity measures. So it shows if two goods are substitutes and complements. Percentage change in the quantity of product B over the percentage change in the price of product A. Just remember, if you're using the quantity of one product, you got to use the price of the other. All right, and these you definitely need to know the coefficients. And you definitely need to know, like here, the coefficient is negative, it's a complement. If it's positive, it's a substitute. Now, people ask me like the tricks to remember. I don't know. I mean, cross price, I just think substitutes and complements because there's two goods. The way I remember it is I just program in my mind, like Coke, the price of Coke goes up. People are going to buy less Coke, so the demand of Pepsi. So they're going the same way. Substitutes are a positive number. Then for complements, I think of hot dogs and hot dog buns. The price of hot dogs go up, people buy less hot dogs, the demand for buns, so they have an inverse relationship. That's how I keep it tracked in my head. And then income elasticity, I know is about income only. Now, this is the sensitivity to a change in income. Now, income elasticity, for whatever reason, they like to just fire out like, this is a normal good, and nothing about the question has to do with income. If the question does not have income in it, it does not matter if it's a normal good or not. I can't emphasize like reading carefully. Okay. All right, then what's going to be on, so it's either normal or inferior, that's all it shows. Percent change in quantity over percent change in income. Okay. Now, I don't know, do I have it anywhere? So, well, I'll do it after this. Okay. So negative, inferior good, positive, normal. Okay. And that kind of makes sense, right? If income goes up and demand goes up, that's a normal good. They're going in the same direction. I'll put it here. I just want to remember to figure out percentage change. It's new minus old over old. In case they just give you the quantities. You can use your calculators. But I will tell you something, at least on our test, because our tests have older questions when kids couldn't use calculators. The numbers should be easy. So if you come up with something like 0.768, something's wrong. All right, because the tests were designed not to use calculators. Okay. All right, demand defined. What is demand? Demand is different quantities of goods that consumers are willing and able to buy at different prices. All right. So different quantity of goods that consumers are willing and able to buy at different prices. Right. The law of demand is something that, like, again, if you want a star so you get one right, here's the law of demand that definitely have. The law of demand states there's an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. Okay. Now, they're not going to ask you probably for the definition of the law of demand, but they might say like, the price of Coke goes down and quantity demanded goes up. This is an example of the law of demand. Or they might say, which of these scenarios best typifies the law of demand? But I will say there'll be a question like the definition. The second type of question they like to ask is, why is the law of demand true? And that's three reasons, right? The substitution effect, the income effect, which is the trickiest one, and the law of diminishing marginal utility. And did I leave you room for me to go over them?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the substitution effect, all right, I think this one is just makes sense in your head, right? If price goes up for a product, consumer buys less Coke and more Pepsi. If price goes down, they buy more Coke and less Pepsi. But that's the substitution effect. And again, like if things that like they'll definitely ask something about these three. All right, the income effect, I think is tricky because it has nothing to do with income. Okay, it's about purchasing power. So if the price goes down for a product, the purchasing power increases for consumers. So sometimes they might say the law of demand occurs and they don't use the income effect. They talk about purchasing power, which is the income effect. Okay, so be aware of that. Okay. And then the third thing is the law of diminishing marginal utility, which is utility of satisfaction. All right, this is what you need. The law of diminishing marginal utility states that as you consume more units of any good, the additional satisfaction will eventually go down. Okay. So I've seen the questions of the law of demand occurs and they get I1, I2, I3, and you got to figure out which three, of all three, of two of the three. But I would know the law of demand occurs because of these three, and there'll definitely be a question about the law of demand and these three. Okay. All right, demand shifters. I hope we have these down. Timer, taste and preference. And there was 11 supply and demand things. Income. There, just be careful if it's a normal or, you know, market size. expectations. Okay? If, for expectations, if prices are gonna go up in the future, demand now is gonna increase. And then related goods, substitutes and complements. Okay, taste, preference, income, market size, expectation, related goods. All right, income, normal goods, direct relationship. All right. If they don't say anything, you're assuming it's a normal good. Inferior goods, as income increases, demand falls, inverse relationship. Again, read carefully. Because I'd say when they throw in inferior goods, guys get those questions wrong. Because they're just not reading carefully. Okay. Just remember, if I slide from A to B or B to A, it's a change in quantity demanded. So they could say income doubles in the United States, and you go from A to C. That's a change in demand, an increase in demand, a shift of demand. But like they could say income doubles in the United States, A, quantity demanded increases. No. Demand increases. So be very careful. Or they could say you go from 3 to 2. A, demand, no, quantity demanded increase. I guarantee there's a question on the test that tries to trip you up that way. All right, rat nest, resource price, okay. What are the most common resources they use? Production cost. First of all, think of supply as producers. So anything that deals with producers is going to be a supply chain. But resource production costs, labor trips guys up a lot. Oil, wages, that's labor. Okay, and then inputs. All right, alternative production. I can make corn or wheat. I'm gonna supply the one that makes me the most money. I think technology, you guys would have. Number of sellers. Okay. Expectations. Here is expectation on future profits. So if I'm expecting to make more money next month, I'm gonna supply less now. Subsidies. Anytime we increase subsidies, supply is going to shift right. Anytime we decrease subsidies, supply is going to shift left. And then taxes. Okay. And again, if there's 11 questions on these, and we'll do like some practice today, you just have to know the shifter. Okay. But again, I think if you could just think consumers are demand and producers are supply, you could be okay. All right, consumer producer surplus, above the price, below demand, consumer surplus, below the price, above supply, producer surplus. And that works on all the graphs we do for the whole year. Did I give you a chance? Is there a place to put the definition of consumer surplus?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let me see, is the next slide that definition? Otherwise, I'll give it to you. All right, so what can I expect on the test? I could expect a graph like this, where they might ask you to figure out what is the consumer surplus, which would be 5 times 10 divided by 2, 1/2 base times height. Or, you know, when they put ABC and ask you what is consumer and what is producer surplus, but I could see it graphically there, okay? Just remember, total surplus is consumer surplus plus producer surplus. Let's use this, the definition coming up. All right, so consumer surplus. like the definition would be what the consumer's willing to pay minus what they actually pay. So consumers' willingness to pay minus what they actually pay. And then producer surplus is what the producer actually gets, or, you know, the revenue the producer brings in minus what they were willing to sell. They usually ask a definition on one of those too. Yeah, what the total revenue they bring in minus what they were willing to sell it for. Okay, and just remember, like, this whole line is what consumers are willing to pay. They're willing to pay 5, they pay 3. They're willing to pay 4, they pay 3. Here, they're willing to sell for 1, they pay 3. All right, so I think I'm doing an excise tax here, right? All right, here's a graph. Oh no, sorry. Is this in your notes this way? Is this a price? Do we have a price ceiling?
Yeah.
All right, so there's your price ceiling. Anytime for these first questions, is it binding? The ceiling, yes, it's an upside down house. The ceiling is below the equilibrium. It is binding, okay? Now, remember, even though people want 50 gallons, we're only gonna sell 20 because that's all that's supplied. Okay, people want 50, we have 20, it's a shortage of 30. So anytime you're below, it's a shortage, and this is what you're willing to buy. I might have to be hold. Okay. Okay. All right. Now,
Like the consumers, like, can you just like do a quick consumer surplus and producer surplus?
yeah, I thought I had a slide like that. It's very nice, but yeah. So the key on these is to take this grade up. So that gives you your deadweight loss, that gives you your consumer surplus, that gives you your producer surplus. Is that what you wanted?
Yeah. What would total revenue be?
Price. 2, your price times your quantity, I think that says 20.
Oh, no, I mean like on the graph, isn't there like a box?
No, that's for the excise tax. Oh, you need to know that
Yeah,
for today's quiz.
that's why I'm asking.
That's for the excise tax. All right, so the next up, I'll just leave this so I could do it for the next one too. The next one is price floor. All right, upside down house, the floor is on the top. Yes, this is binding. Okay, now I take this dot, I go all the way down. There's my deadweight loss, above the price, below demand, below the price, above supply. There's that. Again, here, even though I'm supplying 40, I'm only going to sell 20 because that's all people want. Okay, so they ask that a lot. Like they'll show you this and they'll say, how much corn are they selling? Well, they're selling 20. The last thing on this, Will, if this was a price ceiling, would it be binding? No, so then we go right back to the equilibrium, okay? And you see, I did have them. But here it is. We did this. I did this when Josh asked, so we had it. Okay. All right, here is your this is what you wanted.
Yeah.
All right, here is your excise tax. Where people get tripped up this line is how big the tax is, or this line, or anything, any straight line in between the supply curves. A lot of guys go from here to here, that's not it. So so when I first, if I had like a question like this, I go to the new equilibrium, I draw the line down and then across, that's your tax revenue box. Your consumer surplus is on the top of the box, your producer surplus is on the bottom of the box. This is your deadweight loss.
The supply always gets what happens.
If it's an increase in tax, yes. Okay. So I find the tax. So here, if I look at this line, 4 minus 2, my tax is 2. How do I find out how much of the tax the consumer pays? Well, he used to pay $3, now he's paying 4. The consumer pays $1, the producer pays $1 then. Okay,
Will we have to be able to do like math like that on
Yes.
the way to them?
oh, no, today you just graph it.
Okay,
Wait,
You gotta draw that graph.
I can do it.
Yeah, that's all you have to do
I
today.
don't,
On the test, you'll have to do
Is
that.
it gonna be like a word problem, like?
No, it's gonna say draw an excise tax, show consumer surplus, tax revenue, producer surplus, and deadweight loss.
So that's the tax revenue, so then that's, okay, yeah, that is what it was, that's what I was wondering.
so why is, like, with the producer surplus, why is it, because if it's below the price and then like above supply, then like why is it like all the way down there instead of like in the tax revenue box?
Because the producer, all right, so you're paying 4 for the cigarettes, right?
Yeah,
But the producer gotta send 2 to the government, so the price they're actually getting is $2.
okay,
Okay? Good question.
so is it always below the tax revenue box?
Yes, always.
Okay,
And when graphing, you would have the arrows.
You want to show the arrow for supply shift. For the price and quantity, it's really crowded, so you don't need it. Okay? All right, now, the last thing on this. If they tell you supply is more inelastic or demand is more inelastic, the more inelastic curve will get the greater tax. All right, so sometimes they'll say there's an excise tax on cigarettes. The demand for cigarettes is inelastic, then A, producers bear the biggest burden. No, B, consumers. Yeah, consumers and producers pay, but consumers pay the bigger burden. Okay,
if it's, you said more inelastic.
the more inelastic, the more the tax. Okay. Okay, all right, and then, is this the last thing?
Yeah.
All right,
It's gonna be in the quiz today.
what, the maximizing utility? Josh, what did you, sorry,
I was just asking if this is gonna be in the quiz today.
which?
Right.
No, the only thing today is the 4 grams. Okay? And they're gonna be spelled out, draw a production possibilities curve, put a dot where unemployment is. That's it. All right? All right. So MUX over PX equals MUY over P1. Now, when I say increase, so if I do this, and I get 40 equals 30, I'm gonna always increase the bigger number and decrease the smaller. Because if I say this is pizza, if I increase how many slices of pizza I eat, my marginal utility goes down. And if I decrease the amount of pie I eat, my marginal utility will go up and eventually they'll meet. Okay, at most, there's one question on this. Because I redid the test, so I don't remember exactly, at most. Yes,
What if they're equal?
then you leave it alone. Because then it's perfect, right? It's at equilibrium. All right, any questions on anything? Okay. Really, we know the shifters, take the practice test. Oh, I also did a breakdown of practice test like I did on the quiz. I don't think I did every question. I tried to pick the questions kids had trouble with. Okay, all right, thank you very much. We'll do practice today in class after we do the quiz.